Hi, this is Uza Takasasu with the Dark Wardens, and I am just doing a quick private video for some admins on our server to show them how to get started with Notepad++ to do game modification. So when you go to our Facebook page and eventually to our website, there will be a secret section for tools we use if you need them. And so yeah, I'll just show you this page. This is the Facebook page. So this is a document within the Facebook group. And it has the links for choosing color codes. You can use any color code thing. I just seem to use this one because it's easiest. Code validator, because this will show us if there's any mistakes in the code, missing tags or whatever. You don't want to use Nexus mods, and there's not a lot of stuff on the World Wide Web for modification. The only real place to find stuff is within the 7 Days to Die forums and the game modification section. The tools we use is Notepad++, and that's pretty much it, unless you're doing POIs, which there's another program for that, which is found in the forums. So here's the link for Notepad++. Once you have it installed and updated and set up, you are going to come over here and update plugins. So up here on the bar, you're going to see plugins, second to last one. You're going to go to Plugin Manager. You're going to go Show Plugin Manager. And I'm going to show you what I have installed. So you can, when you go to do the plugins, you pick them from a list. And these are the ones you're going to pick up. This is also how you update them to make sure they're working properly. So if Notepad++, sorry, kitten's being annoying. If Notepad++ needs an update, it's going to ask you to do that update and restart Notepad++ before it'll let you update or install any plugins. So what I have installed is Autosave 2, Bookmark Manager, Compare, Converter, DS Spellcheck, MIM Tools, NIP Export, Plugin Manager, and the XML tools. And so you're going to find those within the available updates. If you find any of these that are helpful to you or you think are helpful to us, let us know. These are the ones I've tried or have been recommended to me. And then you, of course, update them here. So you see there's no plugins with available updates, so that means we're all in the clear. So once you've found those and installed those, it's going to ask you to restart again to finish installing them. And then you can just close that and you're ready to go. This is to start a new document. This is to open an existing document. Of course, there's save all. You want to be really careful with save all, because if you've accidentally made a typo or whatever in the actual config files for the game, you're going to mess yourself up. So make sure that you haven't accidentally edited the config files when you're referencing them. Close all, of course. Be careful with these because you might not have things saved. And so you can synchronize scrolling. You can synchronize scrolling that way. Yeah, so there's a bunch of tools up here, and you can figure out what each of them's for. Don't be shy. Basically, to start coding, you're going to make sure your thing's on the correct language, your page on the correct language. And so you're going to go up here, and we're working primarily in XML. So you're going to go down to XML, to the bottom of the language page, and type XML. This turns this into an XML document. And then it's not required, but it is good penmanship to have the reference for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to our 7 Days to Die files and get some reference material in here. So I'm just going to open up the data config, because this is where we're primarily working out of. And for this example, we'll just open up items file. Always don't hit open, that'll open up in exe, or it'll open up in Explorer. You want to open it with Notepad specifically. Now we're going to move this to the other view, and this is something that will be helpful. Other view, come on. You're gonna have to have two of these open. Move that to the other view. There we go. Make sure this is on the proper language. See, it's on normal text when you're on XML. It's always good to put up this so people know what this is. This is called the reference. And this is original. Make sure you make no edits in here whatsoever, because we do not need to touch this at all. We only use it as a reference, so think of it as your library. That's basically that for that. Whenever you are making a document, you want to make sure if you are making stuff that's an item, that this file is named item. If it says blocks here and you're making new blocks in the game, this should say blocks. Everything has to be capitalized and spelled exactly how it is in here. We cannot have any differences to this. It's extremely important. For instance, if this is old cache here and you're making old cache here, if it's a different item, of course, but if you're referencing old cache, say you're using this as icon or whatever, and you're referencing this as the icon, this has to be spelled the same. But you can do new cache, so we can take this, like this, copy it. This is why it's so easy to code stuff. Paste it in, and go, oh look, new cache. And of course, I'll go into how to edit this later. But if you are referencing something like this, and then you write old cache here, what's going to happen is this is going to be replaced in the game with this, but it's also going to mess everything else up, because the game appends these by number in the order they're listed, and mods goes underneath this list. So what will happen is everything in the game will be shifted by one number, and that will fuck everything up in the game. And so we don't edit these files anymore. We used to. We don't do it. We find tutorials telling you to edit these files, yet don't do it. The new way is to do XPathing. And to do XPathing, we are going to come over here to a modified file. So we're going to go up one more. We're going to go into mods. And let's pick the car spawner. So I'll go into how to set this up in a minute. Actually, let's do that right now. Let's do it from scratch. So this is the mods file, and so what you're going to do first off is you're going to create a new folder with the name of your mods. And we're going to do decor recipes. And close that. Now we're going to go grab all of this. We're going to copy it. Going to go back up. Insert in there. Now we're going to edit these files. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open the mod file. See, I didn't click edit with Notepad, so what it did is brought me into Explorer, and this is not something we can work with, so we have to be careful to open up with the proper program, which is not showing here. So we're going to open up this in a different way. We're going to go down to our files, mods, decor recipes. Okay, now mod file, edit with Notepad. See, brought it up over here. Move it to the other view, just so we're always clear that this is the files we do not touch and these are the files we are editing. So these are just our reference files. So over here we have mod info. This has to be included with every single mod now, so people know where it came from. So we're going to change this to decor mod. Oops. I just accidentally hit F11, I think. There we go. So what we're going to say here is awesome new exclusive decor recipes for the Super Bad server. Of course, you put your name here. I put my gamer tag. If you're one of the other admins doing this, you just put your gamer tag there. You leave the dark ones there because we'll just share this. So that's all you need to say there. Make sure this has the reference material up here. Make sure it says XML, mod info, and make sure these tags are closed here. So yeah, be careful not to delete anything. I mean, if you delete a simple thing as these quotation marks, it will throw an error and the game will not load. So you have to make sure stuff like that's done. Other than that, it's really easy. So we're going to go over here and now we're going to mod these files. Of course, we don't want the dies in here. So I'm going to say edit with Notepad. I brought open all these files. We're done with this. We can close it. We're done with this. We can close it. So really important here is that every file is opened with, and you can see I didn't do this, Fig, open, and you're going to come down here and close your config file. Config, close. And so you're going to want to make sure everything's opened and closed properly so the game doesn't throw errors. So you're going to go up here. So obviously it's the die mod and it has a lot of files in it. So the other thing is important that it says DW dies mod. Well, this isn't the dies mod, so this is clothing mod. I'm going to go back down here and make sure this reads the same exact tag. And what these tags do is tell the game where this content falls when it reads it. It's like a library. So next thing we need to do is append XPath item modifiers. This is what's called XPath, and what this does is it tells the game that this file here needs to be appended into the item modifiers section. And you see this, it says item modifiers. If we go back to our files over here to the normal config files, which is in data config, we're going to see we have a file called item modifiers. So what the game is doing is it's seeing that this file here, it gets cross-pathed with item modifiers, and it's going to append all this content here at the end of this item modifiers file over here. So this is the vanilla file. So this, when the game goes to read our mods folder, it's going to say, oh, this goes at the end of this. So it's going to, when it reads it, put this in that file. And it's not going to do it permanently. It only does it in memory when the game is running. So this is how mods work now. And so what happens is every time the game loads, it reads through all these files, and then it goes over to the mods file and goes, okay, this file gets appended in the end of this file, and that means these two files are the same. If you have multiple mods, they're going to read them in order, whatever order they show up in the list. This is why when we're doing mods on our server, we only reference the mod itself and not other mods. So like when we do this clothing recipe, we're not going to reference the dye recipe or any other recipes or any other items we created in mods. We'll only reference the vanilla material. Now when we get down to other mods, say the traps which give meat, we're going to have to put the trap mod with the kitchen mod so they reference each other. And so we'll get into that later if we work on it together. If not, right now all we need to know is we need recipes. So we do not really need this file because we are not adding any modifiers to the game with the clothing recipe thing. So we close out. It's going to ask us if we want to save this file. We're going to say no. We're going to go over here. We're going to go over to our mods. we're going to make sure in this config file item modifiers are removed. So what we will be needing is recipes. So we're going to go back to this recipes mod, and we're going to make sure we change this to clothing. We're going to go down to the bottom and make sure this also says clothing with capitalization and spelling exactly. And we're going to make sure it's ended, so it says end of this. Make sure that's there. And we're going to go back up to the top, and we're going to add config. Make sure you add beginning and ending tags there. So we go down here. So we don't really need to do anything to where it says recipes because we're just adding more to the recipe list. Now we notice this is the dye mod, so these recipes are already in another mod and they go right to the dyes file. So we can delete all of this. And this is the little section we're working in for now. So we're going to go over here and we're going to open this up. We're going to go all the way back to the vanilla files, which is in data, config, and we're going to find items and recipes. I think items is open, so we need to find recipes. I do with Notepad++. Make sure you move it to the other view so you know what's the files you reference. And so we're going to find all the clothing. So we're going to go to the top of the vanilla items file, and we are going to look at where the clothing is in this file. Clothing is right here. Armor's right here. Armor's all done. So we know that armor has recipes in the game because we're supposed to make armor as part of the game. However, clothing is really hard to find, and sometimes you can go ages without finding the piece of clothing you actually want. If you want to add different kinds of clothing in the game, this is the mod you do it in if you want to change how the clothing works in the game. So we're not going to do that with this mod, we're just adding recipes. So clothing is down here, we're going to go right here, we're going to highlight that, we're going to go click find. So that says armor, you can see it says padded armor, that's not what we need. We need to find the one here that says clothing. We're just going to keep going next. There we go. Clothing, elemental resist. So we can make plant fiber clothing. We know that recipe's in the game. Plant fiber shirt, hood, shoes, and gloves, and a hat. However, I don't think we can make hazmat clothing. And to check this, we are going to take hazmat boots. We're going to copy that. We're going to go over to recipes, and we're going to search for it, make sure there's no recipe. See, there is no recipe. So we want to make a recipe for hazmat clothing. So we're going to find that there's military fiber. We're just going to keep scrolling down until we find a clothing recipe. And remember, you can only have up to 5 items within a recipe. So we are going to copy any recipe here. It really does not matter. We're going to paste that recipe into there. And then we're going to go over here to the item we want to make, which is hazmat boots. We're going to very carefully replace this right here with hazmat boots. And we want to make sure this is the same as this, because the recipe will then make this item. If this is spelled any other way, it will break the game, because it will only look for this with the exact spelling capitalization as this. And if this item here does not exist in the game or in your mod, in a previous file, then the game will not read it. So we want to make sure this only says 1. We want to make hazmat boots with probably cloth, duct tape, and military fiber. And probably plastic to make it a little bit harder to make. So we're going to need to find military fiber and plastic in their exact names. We can do this 2 ways. We can scroll up here and we see resource military fiber. Make sure that's copied exactly. And put it there. And we need resource polymers. This is plastic. And don't worry, it won't be named that in the game because the game has a reference file that renames this within the game. So that's that. We're going to make sure that this has the right count. We probably want to have 2 rolls of duct tape and 10 military fiber and 10 plastic. And that's probably a decent amount of stuff for that. So we can then take this recipe right here, copy and paste, make sure you get beginning and ending tags of the recipe. I'm going to click 2 down. And now we can grab the next item on the list, which is hazmat pants. And once again, you're just going to change that name to that. And that's done. And now you can keep doing this for the next one, hazmat shirt. Grab the recipe. So we're going to grab the recipe again because we have hazmat gloves and hazmat mask. You want to remember the hazmat mask has a glass shield on the front, so we're going to add an extra ingredient to make it a little bit harder to make this. We're going to go up here and we're going to find scrap glass. It's in the recipes. Parts, mechanical parts, resource broken glass. Probably want to find actual regular glass. So that's a unit glass. Bulletproof blocks. Actually, that's a good idea. We can make it with a bulletproof glass curved pane, which would make it an interesting recipe, and because people then couldn't make the hazmat mask without actually having the ability to do that. A little other thing you can do is you make sure this entire recipe is made on a workbench to further gate it for the player to make it not so easy. So you can see this says craft area forge. We're going to find one that says craft area workbench so we get the correct tag. Campfire, chemistry station, workbench. So we're going to take this right here where it says craft area workbench, from there all the way to where the quotation mark ends, and we're going to copy that. And we're going to put a space after count 1. And just paste it in. This way it gates the recipe behind meeting a workbench. You can further gate the recipe by putting in learnable, and then it will gate the recipe somehow. I don't want to make the recipe learnable because I feel it's already gated enough being behind a workbench, and that once you get the workbench, yeah, you should be able to make the hazmat items. I can't really say anything else except that maybe we could gate the hazmat boots by using a pair of already made boots in the game, because you'd need the rubber soles off of them, which would kind of make sense. So we're going to go through items. We're going to go click find, write boot, armor leather boots. I'm going to find regular boots, Kevlar boots. So military boots it is. We're going to copy that. Well, first we're going to make a recipe spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We can only have 5 items. So we're going to copy military boots. I'm going to replace it with this. So now we've created a set of recipes for the hazmat items. We've gated them behind a workbench, and we have further gated the boots and the mask behind other items we need to make in the game. So now this is done, you're going to make sure you have your config file, your mods file, and your pen file closed. We're going to make sure each recipe is properly closed. And then we're going to hit save. Now, if there was an error in this file would throw up a thing that asks, that says there's an error. So we're going to try that real quick. We're going to make an error so you can see what happens. So I'm going to unappend that file, and now I'm going to hit save. It's not working. Okay, there is a reason for that, and it's probably one of the add-ons is not working properly, which can happen. So now we're going to copy the whole thing like this, and we are going to go over to our tool here, XML Validator. And so this is a good example of why you need this tool. So you're going to paste your XML in there. And we're, just for the purposes of this, going to make a mistake in here. And then we're going to click Validate. Click on that to jump to error. So on line 48, element type append must be terminated by matching end tag append. So we're going to click on it, and it's going to show you that the mistake is here. In reality, the mistake is one line above, which is here. This append file does not have the proper closing tag on it, which tells the game that this file's ended. So we are going to start this over. I don't know how to reset this other than deleting that and pressing enter to reload the page. I'm going to paste this in. This time it does not have that mistake, and see what happens. Oops, I opened the wrong thing. I'm going to hit validate. No errors were found. This is what we want to see. So now, before we try this in the game, we are going to open up our file and make sure there's no extra files in the mods folder. So scroll up, go into the mods file, go into decor recipes, we do not need an items file in there because we have not edited any items, and we don't want to get confused with other stuff. The other issue is that this is named decor and it should be clothing. So we're going to rename it. Enter. The really nice thing about this is you can leave these mod files within your vanilla game. Here, so you can continue testing and make sure they work with your other mods. This allows you to edit while the game is not running, but of course without having to completely add the file in over and over. So unlike before, where we had to have a back copy of the game and continually go back and forth and reinstall, this makes it really simple to work with. So I see these are added in. This is in my vanilla personal copy of the game. We do not do this on the server. It's within your 7 days to die file. If you do not know how to get this, let me know. I will show you how to get this, but I'm going to go on the assumption that you know where your 7 days to die video game is stored on your PC, and that you can easily find these files. The mods file is not there originally. You will have to, once you get in there, create a new folder and name it mods, exactly as you see here. And make sure your mods are entered in this way. To get on the same page with you, I will probably hand over some of these mods so that way you can see, make sure that the mods you make are compatible with the mods we have running on the game. And so that will make us on the same page. Now that this is saved, yeah, you can see it says we deleted that page. Do we keep the editor? No, we do not. No, we do not. But we are going to go and make sure that I pressed that, it didn't delete it. So edit with Notepad, move it over to the other view, and there we see our beautiful recipes. So now we're going to start the game and make sure the recipes are working properly. And this is easy as just going over to your game library. And loading the game. And now you have to load the game between every single mod you make because the game has to load those files. You cannot have the game running and try to work on mods because the game loads it into a temporary file, like your RAM memory is a temporary file. And so it loads the game into this temporary file where it's reading off of this temporary file and not the hard-coded file. Therefore, every time you work on a mod, you do have to close out the game completely, create the mod, and then turn the game back on. There we go. Continue game. So, it's saying, yep. So it's saying, see how it's saying there's an error. The only way to fix this is to close out. Now you see what happens if it's not correct. So we're going to hit save on this. I'm going to do a quick validation on this just to make sure those files are cleared out. I'm sorry for the time it's taking. This is part of why it takes so long. It's not the coding part, but it's the waiting for things. Another thing we can do while we're waiting for that to validate is we can go in here and look at the actual error. So we're going to go up one. We're going to go to 7 days to die underscore data. And we're going to go to the latest output log. I like to delete the output logs in between loads so that we know where we're at. So we're going to open this with Notepad. And there's a lot of gobbledygook here. That's what everyone calls it anyway. So we're going to scroll down during this. And XML exception append is expected line 48 position 4. And it's not there, so it's telling us that is wrong. Failed loading and parting XML recipes. Yep. So this is where the error is. There is another error, and decor mod failed. Objects is not set. Well, we don't have a decor in there, so I don't know what it's talking about. Open this. Ah. Alright, save. Gonna make sure on the recipes it says clothing and not decor. Clothing. Don't know why this failed, so we're going to look at this again and try to figure out why it's failed. Reference not such an instance of an object. So yeah, I think that's the only error. And this looks like it's done. Everything's validated, so there were no more errors. And we're going to click play again. The nice thing about working with smaller mod files is when there is an error, there's a lot less code to look through. You can just look through the most recent mod you added. And this is also why we don't reference other mods or try to not have a mod that has any conflicts, like say 2 mods having the same recipe, or 2 mods trying to change item or block that's already in the game. We want each of those mods, if they reference something, to have everything contained in that mod that it needs. Which is why when we work on the kitchen recipe, we'll also be working on the traps recipe, because the traps are going to be supplying the meat for the recipes in the kitchen mod. So that's a huge mod that needs to be done as well, and I will be working on it once these smaller recipes are done. These 2 recipe mods we're doing, one is going to be for clothing and one is going to be for decor items. The only reason we're keeping it separate is to keep it short. And sometimes this happens. And you notice I had to close out manually. One thing I'm going to do is remove config, because other people use it, but I am not having luck in using it. And when I tried their things, it doesn't work for me. So we're going to reference somebody else's material real quick. We're going to open up the car spawner. You see it's config there, but when I use it, for some reason it breaks the game. So we're going to try it without this config right here and see if it works. So far, so good. No errors. You see how that one config line messed us up? And normally, other people say it works for them. It's not working for me, so whatever. sorry. So now we're just going to make sure the recipe exists. I'm going to go to shirts. I see it's not there. These should have, I don't need a workbench. So we're going to go hazmat. And there's our new recipes. You see they have military boots. 241 scrap polymers. Yeah, that's funny. So there's your recipes. And that's as easy as that is. And you can actually... See? Gruel fluid glassware's plate. So, now you have your recipes. And that's all it takes to do that in the game. So we can do a ton of recipes if we want to. They do caution us against doing too many recipes because they say it slows down the game for some reason. But I'm sure if we're just, doing manageable things, we'll be fine. Aw, poor Bob's asleep. Bob. Bye, Bob. There's that. That's working. My only issue is they're all white. When they respawn, they're all white. So anyway, yep, that's how you make recipes in the game. And I look forward to working with you on other recipes if you're one of my admins.